All right, welcome everybody to Ask the Experts. We'll give you guys a couple quick seconds to get situated. I'm sure there's a couple more just joining right now, but we will be getting started in the next 15 seconds. As you guys do start to get comfortable inside of this virtual Ask the Expert session, just a couple quick reminders, and we'll go through this, of course, as we get into the introduction and introduce our two experts. This is fully dedicated and reliant on your questions, right? This is truly an Ask the Expert interactive session. So everything here, all of the content is truly and fully reliant on you guys asking questions to our experts. So please start to think about some great questions. Hopefully you came here with some great questions, and we will absolutely get started right now. So welcome to Ask the Experts, Crestron, Android versus Windows. When building for a new platform or redesigning your current spaces, does it really matter? And that's the question that hopefully we're going to answer here today. And ideally, you're going to have a lot more questions for our experts to ask as well. So we're going to go through quickly the agenda. We're going to go through a couple of things of etiquette and rules, and of course, introduce our experts. So first, we're going to get into how to engage with the experts. If this is your first Ask the Expert session, please remember, use that live event Q&A. Ask your questions. We will both be answering your questions directly in the chat. We have a gentleman named Joe Saracen who joined us, who will be able to answer those questions directly. And I'll be calling out the most upvoted questions directly to our experts. So even if you do see a question that maybe you were thinking about and it was asked, make sure you hit the upvote button so that I prioritize that and ask our experts. Now, of course, you can do it anonymously or use your name. There is no requirement either way. But again, it's always great to call those out that have joined this session. So a couple of things on etiquette. This session will be recorded. Please don't spam the chat. Obviously, feel free to say hi and ask some questions, but let's not try to spam it, as obviously we're going to have a lot of questions coming in here for our experts. And please do adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct. I'm just going to put this up here. Hopefully you guys have seen this throughout Microsoft Ignite and even probably through some other sessions. But without further ado, let's get into the stars of the show. And we have two awesome experts. We've got Graham Walsh, who is joining us. He is the director of our technical solutions for worldwide UC devices. Now, a little bit about Graham. Graham's been in the IT and telecom industry for over 25 years, working in UC, video conferencing, telepresence, and the entire Microsoft suite of servers and applications. Before coming to Crestron, Graham was at Pexit. He was the director for solutions architecture in the UK and I and EMEA. And most importantly, Graham was awarded the Most Valuable Professional MVP award in October of last year for Office Apps and Services. Welcome, Graham. A couple quick things about Graham actually that you saw on here, and I'm starting to learn myself. He competed in a Lotus Elise race car series, which is pretty sweet. And Graham, you got to ask, I'm very curious what uni pizzas are. So we're going to have to maybe get to that. I don't know what the hell that is. Next, going on to our next expert is Jimmy Vaughn, the infamous Jimmy Vaughn. And Jimmy is a partner technical specialist over at Microsoft. And make sure you catch his Twitter handle, Jersey Jimmy. Yes, that is true. It is Jersey Jimmy. That's not a joke. And if you guys didn't know about Jimmy, he was formerly an award-winning TV producer for the WWF. But professionally now, Jimmy has 20 years in the modern workplace in intelligent building spaces. And before joining Microsoft, he also was an MVP in Office Apps and Servers. So welcome, Jimmy, and hopefully you get some time to talk about drones and Dachshunds as well. Anyway, awesome to have you both on here. We've got a ton of questions. I'm going to get to those right now. And I'm going to start with the first question. Let's get over here. We've got a question over here from Ross. Will Microsoft Teams rooms for Android support devices with built-in Miracast? I'm going to push that off to you, Graham, to start us off.
So the built-in Miracast stack is only available today on the Surface Hub, as far as I'm aware. The Windows devices do not have that capability, and neither do Android. What Microsoft are working on, and it's in the public roadmap. If you look on aka.ms/MTR roadmap, you'll see a feature called casting. And this feature will be coming to both the Windows platform and the Android platform, where you can take your cell phone device and be able to, or your tablet, and be able to cast your screen to that Microsoft Teams room. So that's the way Microsoft are working towards, let's call it wireless presentation in that meeting space.
So Jimmy, we actually have a great question here for you. And the question was that they said that they've seen challenges with Android in the past is that vendors are abandoning hardware, particularly smartphones and tablets, in terms of monthly security patches. How are Microsoft and partners going to ensure this doesn't happen with MTR for Android? Jimmy?
Well, we're going to stick to the basic idea of making sure that every device, whether it's from partner A or partner B, actually does keep up with the all of the profiles. There are things on Android that basically come out. Yeah, you do have to patch it. You do have to do things. It's no different than Windows. It's no different than any other OS that's out there. When things are actually published about how to actually infiltrate a device or get some sort of thing where it's an intrusion detection or something like that. When those are found, they have to be patched, and they'll be patched by the vendors and by Microsoft, and Microsoft will be holding those vendors accountable for making sure that those patches are actually in the Android stack.
Thanks, Jimmy. Let's move on to Joseph, who's asked a question. Graham, I'm going to point this over to you. Will Android room systems support third-party meetings or even like direct guest join type meetings?
So yes, today that is available on the Windows platform for Zoom and WebEx. And Microsoft also have mentioned that they are researching that and looking at that for the Android. So that is a roadmap feature, but no committed time frame for that on there.
Graham, let's expand on that a little bit more because we have a couple other questions. And by the way, thank you guys for the interaction here. We've got a ton of questions. I'll do my best to get to all of them. And thank you for upvoting a bunch of the good ones. But expanding on that, Graham, can you speak a little bit more broadly to feature parity across Windows-based room systems and, of course, Android-based room systems? And, of course, Jimmy, please do chime in as well as Graham goes through this.
So yeah, the intention is to bring feature parity, so end users don't have to make a choice, and they shouldn't care what they walk into that room is, whether it's Android or Windows. It's a Microsoft Teams room with the same user interface, the same buttons, the same iconography. Everything is familiar to when they walk in that room. However, there will be some differences as the software gets developed. So for example, if you've ever used the Magic Whiteboard, that's on the Windows platform today. And obviously things like the guest join access will come to Android. And then when you look at things in the broader rooms or the larger rooms, when you want something like room control, so if you wanted to control like the shades behind you there, Andrew, from your Microsoft Teams room console, that is on Windows today, with different partners being able to offer that on there. So you get a little room control. I think, again, that's just on Windows today. And then in terms of other features, that's feature parity is, things like the digital whiteboard, where you can plug in a front of room touch display and, start drawing and inking on that system. So that's supported on both. And then when you look at, coordinated meetings, when you want to pair your Microsoft Teams room today, it's on Windows, where you can pair it with a Surface Hub. So again, slightly different. That's not available on the Android platform today. And then also when you look at the sort of room sizes, there's small, medium and large categories and even custom spaces on Windows. I feel that the Android devices are very much down in the smaller spaces, personal spaces, and hence why there's also a personal mode for the Android devices. So again, that could be used at home, maybe with a touch screen in your home office or in a huddle space, and you sign it in as your personal account, and the user interface looks a little bit different. So again, there are going to be some slight differences, but a lot of feature parity, especially in that center of room console when you can control that. Anything else, Jimmy, do you want to throw in there?
I don't think there's anything specific. I think one thing from the Microsoft side to make sure that everybody understands is that feature parity will be coming less and less. I think the product group, Ilya Bookstein and his devices team here at Microsoft has been very clear. With Windows, you get a lot of free development, and you get a lot of free things that sort of come to those devices. With Android, there's a little bit extra that you have to do on the engineering side to make sure that those sort of things work. I think, Graham, you were talking about the third-party guest join. That third-party guest join is something that Microsoft is committed to actually bringing to those devices, because what is the basic use of all of these room systems? Well, the number one use case is I go into a room. These were designed to make it easy to join meetings. If you remember back pre-pandemic when we were all inside of the rooms, and it was early on in the Link room system and Skype room systems. The basic Microsoft premise was make meetings easy. And why did they have to make meetings easy? It was because 9 times out of 10 people were going into conference rooms and they were challenged with difficult joining procedures, dialing codes and passcodes and things like that. And the number one item on these room systems, whether it's Windows or Android or anything else, is I just want to start my meeting and I want that single touch join. During lockdown, every C-level executive has learned how to join a meeting, which, you know, who would have known before lockdown that they even know how to do that? But now they've learned how to do that. Now the idea is to get back to the office, give them that same ease of use and ease of into the conference room. And it's the familiar style of just the single touch join. And again, whether it's Android or Windows, that is the main goal. Now, as far as sort of the advanced features and things like that, yes, you're going to start to see a lot of feature parity between Windows and Android, but it's going to take that time to sort of develop. And those things that are free on Windows sort of take a little bit more time on Android. So probably by the end of this calendar year, you're going to see a lot more feature parity on the two devices.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think that's a great point. And, you know, as we're, 10, 11 minutes into this, just to remind everyone that maybe you've jumped in a little bit late, we are talking about Android versus Windows for room systems specifically, mainly Teams room systems, of course. And these questions are fantastic. Keep them coming. We've got over 60 questions in here. I'll do my best to get to all of them. But Jimmy, let's actually stay with you because we have a couple questions that are around Intune. And a lot of people are curious around Android and Intune. What does that look like? And maybe even speak broader to just overall management of potential Android room systems for Teams.
I think from the Microsoft side, you're going to see, I've been working personally with some people inside of Microsoft on some management documents and guidance on that. I think there has been sort of, with Microsoft, the idea is, yeah, you've got a lot of freedom to do a lot of things. And that freedom sometimes comes with, hey, well, how do we best do this? And the documents that we're actually working on is to narrow that down a little bit. Yes, Intune is an option for these. Yes, MTR Premium. If you have not investigated MTR Premium, I implore everybody, it is now free for 90 days. You should try MTR Premium, as it is something that is an add-on and it is available to manage these devices. And it does give an added benefit to this. But we're going to have actually documentation that shows you how to manage these. Now, there is also the Teams Admin Center. A lot of people have found that using the Teams Admin Center by itself is enough that they can manage it. The security document that was just published and worked on by Michael Tressler, that's a great point that is put out there, where people were actually adding it to the domain and putting it on their local subnet. And if you look at some of the guidance of these systems, the guidance is, hey, put it on a public network that just has public facing protocols. Don't put it on your local network. That way, if your local network is actually compromised, your room systems aren't compromised. These are not sort of singular devices with a unique name and everything else. They are used for public devices, and they have that room account that sits on them. The security of these devices is locked down so that things like antivirus and all of that does not apply to these devices, so that you don't have to necessarily worry about all that. But as far as management goes, yes, I think that there is a little bit of tightening that's going to come, and we're going to document that. But right now, Intune, MTR Premium, Teams Admin Center, domain joining, all of that is available. And I think what you're going to see is sort of a best, better, and sort of guidance towards what's best out there coming from us in the next couple of months.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's great insight, and hopefully everyone here gets an idea of really best practices for management. And as Jimmy said, it sounds like there's a lot more coming from Microsoft. around management of these devices, which again is key, right? We're all looking at deploying more and more room systems. As we get more endpoints, they all need to be managed. Graham, I'm going to send this one over to you. This is a great question. It's actually our most upvoted question that we've received. So clearly there's a lot of people asking this or thinking it. And there's really two parts to this question. The question was specifically around the ability to be platform agnostic. And the question actually stated that, our organization requires the ability to join more than just Teams meetings. Yes, we may be standardized on Teams, but maybe our vendors or our customers are standardized on things like Zoom or even WebEx, or maybe things outside of that like Hangouts or Chime. So Graham, can you talk to the group here a little bit about maybe even something that Crestron has to offer from a agnostic standpoint when deploying Teams rooms, but also what does the outlook look like for guest join or anything related to Android and Windows, and does it matter between the two?
Sure. So guest join access was developed, and it's based on WebRTC technology. So it's using a web browser in there. And as Jimmy mentioned, Windows is free. You can open up Edge browser and you can access anything. So Microsoft have done the nice coding to hide all the Internet Explorer stroke Edge boxes, should we say. So partners with WebEx and Zoom, which are all successfully launched now. And they have mentioned, Microsoft, that there will be other platforms coming. So if you think of any video vendor that has WebRTC, potentially they might be in talks with Microsoft. Nothing's been announced there. But to get around that barrier today, and obviously that's for Windows, and obviously we said earlier that will come to Android at some point as well. Haven't said which versions have been communicated there, but I guess it's going to be the same if I was betting man. But then obviously if you want to get outside that ecosystem, you've got a Blue Jeans, a Pex, a Hangouts, a Chime or whatever. There is another mode on devices, and with Crestron, we have a device called an advanced Flex series, and that allows you to bring your own device into the room, plug in your laptop, and then use that software client on your laptop, just like we've all been doing from home with that click to join experience from your calendar, but use the room peripherals and be socially distanced and safe around the table, but use the room speakers, mic, and camera. So there are ways to do it today with devices. So yeah, certainly it's an option to break out of the, let's call it the guest join environments, but also expand that to other devices. And again, future plans, I guess, will be to have that again agnostic, whether it's Windows or Android, it doesn't matter. You'll have the same functionality in whatever room space you walk into.
Thank you, Graham. That's awesome. And I think clearly that's a lot of what people are struggling with is being able to join multiple platforms and just trying to wrap their heads. It doesn't matter from a platform standpoint. Moving on, Jimmy, I'm going to ask a question over to you. And this was one around SIP-based meetings. And are there any plans to be able to support joining SIP-based meetings? Because it sounds like it's been a struggle since moving away from Skype for Business.
SIP-based meetings isn't really something that I understand is being looked at right now. I know that there's the ability to actually bring SIP-based phones and things like that into the phone side and the voice side. But as far as SIP-based meetings, I don't think that there's anything that I know of that's actually on the roadmap right now for the meeting side. The real thing is guest join and Teams meeting side. Those are the two big things. And again, if you've got something to sort of work with where you've got a WebEx platform or moving off of some other platform, there is that CVI, which can be used to actually amortize your existing solutions and basically bring Teams meetings into your organization while being able to join all of the other kinds of platforms.
And I think just to add to that as well, Jimmy mentioned, but that's Cloud Video Interop. That is really for any platform because it's bringing those SIP devices into your Teams meeting. So again, that will not be dependent on what's in the room because they're joining the Teams cloud with that Video Interop service.
I think really the key is, and to anybody that's joining this meeting and to understand, is that Microsoft sort of sees the conference room as something that's going to be sort of a collaborative experience. And if you looked at some of the things that came from Ignite today, you saw Mesh, you saw a whole bunch of sort of AI collaboration that is sort of a focus of this company. And I think if you're just looking at the idea of, well, I want a SIP-based meeting or I want this, you're not really looking at what Microsoft is doing inside of the conference room. What Microsoft Microsoft is doing inside of the conference room is being able to bring that collaboration that we've all become used to, that all of us are on right now, where we're talking a few to many, or you're collaborating with 250 of your closest friends in a single meeting. That kind of thing is where the Microsoft world is sort of bringing it into that conference room. It's no longer just, all right, it's audio and video. Think about when document sharing is going to come, when some of the things that you saw in the vision video that was released today, where you've got task assignments and you've got actually identification of the people that are inside of the room through the speaker, where you can assign tasks to them for after the meeting. When you've got chat, when you've got transcription, and the transcription is actually being translated into other languages, that's the kind of thing that's happening, and that's the kind of thing that you can't get with these SIP-based or other platforms that are out there right now. That's where Microsoft is innovating, and that's where the vision of these systems is really coming from.
That's huge. Thank you both for addressing those questions. Quick reminder to everyone on here, as we only have around under 10 minutes left, is that if you got your question in, great, thank you for that. But please do remember to continue upvoting, as we have over 70 questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to all of them. So please make sure you upvote. That's how we're going to be asking these questions to the experts. So let's go to another great topic that I saw a couple questions asked about, but I think they all relate to the same thing. And Graham, I'm going to throw this over to you first, but I'm sure this will spark some conversation between you two. And it's around room extensions, integration, things beyond just joining the meeting room, and the differences between Android and Windows. One of the specific aspects that was asked was around PTZ camera control, but also around general room integration and room control from an Android versus a Windows-based Teams room system. So Graham, can you address that?
So I can talk about how we do it on Windows today. So with the Microsoft Teams room on Windows, there is that extension to control that camera. So if you've got a certified Teams device connected, then you can have an extension, say we call it a page flip in the bottom corner, so you can go into that room control. So if you're not using, say, AI and automatic camera tracking, you can have obviously manual control of that camera, pan, tilt, zoom. Today, I do not believe that is on the Android, but again, roadmap feature-wise, I think it's going to come there. I know on the, let's call it the collab bars, when they were known as that, they had a basic camera control function. But again, they're a lot smaller, those devices, to start with anyway. Obviously, some Android systems are going to get certified for larger rooms as well. So I guess, as Jimmy said, towards the end of the calendar year, we'll have feature parity such as being able to control larger rooms on Android, because again, the user shouldn't need to know what it is there. They want to know, do they have a pan, tilt, zoom control button, and even then multiple cameras as well. So again, that's one of the big features that's been requested by a lot of people for these large complex rooms or town hall meetings or cafes. Is having multiple cameras, and again, this has been committed to be developed on Windows. And again, if you look at that public roadmap, even IP audio and IP video peripherals. So again, a little bit of differentiator because Windows is that little bit more mature for these larger spaces.
Awesome. Thank you, Graham. And it looks like you already answered one of the other questions as well, was multiple cameras, which was great. I didn't know if you were already monitoring the chat and answering questions as an expert. You're the man. Yeah, I didn't know you could multitask like that, but thank you for that. Jimmy, I'm going to get this over to you. This is a great question. I know Joe answered it in the chat, but I think it's a great question that should be spoken about. I'm actually just going to read it. So bear with me, but it's from Alessandro. It says, we've seen a lot of IT departments balk at Windows 10 enterprise IoT devices being put on their networks. They tend to want to lock them down, enforce group policy, etc. There is documentation from Microsoft that can prepare customers for what needs to be true for MTRs to exist on their networks, but often that's not enough. So do you see, Jimmy, Android devices running MTRs having an easier time passing IT policies?
So here's the answer, and I'm going to sort of step back to my role as everybody on the panel here knows, I spent 20 years at Crestron, and Joe and I invented the Crestron Mercury system, which actually runs on Android. So I'm going to step back into that world, and I'm going to go, hey, how was it when we got Android systems onto corporate networks and do things? So many IT departments and many security departments and InfoSec departments actually have the mandate that not only Windows devices go through the scanning, also Android devices go through the scanning, and they put them through pen testing and different things to make sure that, hey, the Android side has all of these libraries included inside of it. It actually passes every known security vulnerability that's out there. And they run them through. Is it going to be easier? I don't think it's easier, or it's worse. I think it's just another operating system that has to go through that. Any device that touches the network has the possibility of having some threat detected. And what the IT departments are really doing is basically making sure that, hey, you meet all of our security requirements to be on the network. And why are they doing that? Because, as soon as you open up or as soon as you let down anything that that is a known issue, you're going to be attacked. And, there's a lot of interest around security and things like that. And I think that the security documents that we have online for Windows, you're going to see those expand. But it helps. I think Alessandro actually said it right when he said that there's a lot of documentation out there that's, hey, prepare this for the Windows side. And I think you're going to see the same thing for the Android side. I don't think there's any difference. I think it's just going to be, this is targeted when you're putting in Windows and this is targeted when you're putting in Android. But again, for the customer or the end customer that's going into the room itself, they should know. They should just go into a room, they should hit the join button, and they should see their interface, and they should be good. This is really on the management side, and I think you're going to see a lot of that documentation as Android devices become more prolific and they become more in line with the feature parity of the Windows side.
Fantastic. Thank you for that insight, Jimmy. Quick update. We only have around 3 or 4 minutes left. So if you have any questions, make sure you get them in now. We look like we only probably have time for 2 more. So again, take a look and see if a question was asked. Make sure you like it and we'll be able to ask it. Graham, I'm going to send this one over to you, but it was one of our most liked questions again, was on room systems. We noticed that Microsoft's not able to wake TV's HDMI. Do you know if that functionality is coming with room systems, and does it matter, Windows versus Android?
How long have we been answering this, Graham? Almost 2 years now. Go ahead.
So yeah, there's actually a big discussion actually. So Jimmy and I host an MTR AMA Ask Me Anything session once a month, and we'll post details of that. But yeah, it's one of the biggest questions. How do we automate, waking the screens up when you walk in? Yes, there's ways to do it with, ceiling sensors and everything else and occupancy sensors. But some vendors only have, and Jimmy's written a good blog on this actually, on how different vendors interpret CEC control to wake those displays up. So some MTR on Windows have it, some don't. On Android, I'm not sure on the spec for that. Actually, is it built into those collaboration bars that we had today? I don't know how Android treats that CEC signal. Any idea, Jimmy, on that one?
It's the same as on Windows. Basically, it's in the HDMI spec, and the HDMI spec says that a certain pin number actually has to be activated, and it has to basically send signals across it. And it sends signals that are standard of off and on and so on and so forth. Now, the difference between display manufacturers is huge. What does off mean? And when to a display manufacturer, off may mean I'm shutting off the screen, which might actually disable the 5 volts that's needed on the HDMI pin to then wake it back up on CEC. So you can get into a lot of problems with CEC, and CEC is nothing more than best effort. Let me try to do this and see if this works. If it doesn't work, you'll have to go get a new display. I think I said on the last MTR AMA, Graham, one AV integrator actually said to me about displays, he said, if you can buy it at Best Buy, don't. And the reason why is because a lot of commercial displays actually have these kind of advanced functionalities inside of them to be able to do things. One of the things on MTR, if you don't have a CEC enabled device, they all turn off black on the output of the screen when they go to sleep, and they all turn on video signal when they wake up. And a lot of commercial displays, because they didn't want to rely on CEC, they actually have what's called a PC mode. And that PC mode follows that turn off video and turn on video signals directly. So there is a lot of information out there. CEC is not the answer to everything that everybody wants to do. A lot of times, basically, it's going to run into, let's make sure that we test the MTR that we have with the display that we're planning on putting out. Let's make sure that the firmware on that display is actually up to date, because you'll see that CEC actually gets changed through firmware versions as well. But I'd love to say that CEC is a standard that's followed by everybody out there. It's really the Wild West, and it's sort of a best effort technology that's there.
Well, I think that is a perfect way to close this out. We are just at around 6:30 Eastern time. So thank you so much to everyone who asked these questions. We hit almost 100 questions, let alone the amount of likes and upvotes that were out there. This was an amazing Ask the Experts because of you, the audience. Thank you so much for contributing. But also thank you, Graham. Thank you, Jimmy. I just threw up on the slide deck right now for if anybody has further questions. So please do make sure you reach out directly to Graham and Jimmy via LinkedIn. That is their preferred way of communication. I put their LinkedIn handles right here. This was an awesome session. Of course, if you all want to find out more information on not just Crestron, but of course, Android and Windows, you'll be seeing some more information come out from Crestron and of course from Microsoft. But from Crestron specifically, you can head to our website at crestron.com/teams, but also most importantly, head to the Crestron featured page at Microsoft Ignite and enjoy the rest of the show, Microsoft Ignite. Again, thank you, Graham, and thank you, Jimmy, and thank you to the audience. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the show.